Coming up on Retiring Well.
We are talking about the 3 things that you need to know about your income planning during the second half of your life.
But you got to make sure that income is sustainable, that it's not going to be subject to huge market fluctuations.
They're more focused on that growth phase and not necessarily on that generation of income type of approach.
Retiring Well, helping you make smart decisions with your money so you can live a better life. Today is the day you can take back control of your money. Retiring Well, where we believe your best is yet to come.
Welcome to Retiring Well. I'm your host, Michael Reese. I am super excited about this week's show. We are talking about the 3 things that you need to know about your income planning during the second half of your life. So folks, this is important. 3 things you need to know. And I'm going to give you here a quick, synopsis, kind of a quick heads up. This is what we're going to be talking about. But you're going to want to stay tuned in because we're going to dive into each of these in more detail. All right, let's go ahead. Number 1, you got to have a plan. I mean, remember what did Zig Ziglar used to say? Said, if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. So many of you may be sitting home thinking, well, what an income plan for the second half of my life? I've got that right. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. It's really amazing how, so many times people just like you watch a show, you come and visit with us, and it turns out you don't really have the income plan you thought you had. Well, let's make sure you have a plan. So number 1, we're going to talk about having a plan. Really, really important. What's number 2? Number 2, you have to understand how to correctly use guaranteed accounts. So whenever you're looking at your retirement and you're looking at income, guaranteed accounts do play a role. But like a lot of things in life, you don't do all of this or all of that. Usually the right place to be is somewhere in between. So the question is, how do you correctly use, or how do you properly use those guaranteed accounts for your circumstances? We're going to want to talk about that as well. And then, of course, what's third? The third is this concept known as sequence of returns. Okay, what is sequence of returns? What does that really mean? Well, when we use the phrase sequence of returns in the financial world, what we're really talking about is how markets don't move in the same direction every year. Right? In addition to that, they don't move at the same speed. So, one year you might be up 10%, and then the next only up 2, and then up 20, but then you're down 13. And so the order in which those returns come can literally make or break your retirement. Now, that's something that I think many people don't understand, but it's so vitally important that you understand. We want to make sure that you have a great second half of your life, one where you don't have to worry about money. So these 3 items, having a plan, understanding how to properly use those guaranteed accounts, and understanding sequence of returns, if you've got those down, we know you're going to be in a good shape. All right, I don't want you going anywhere. We'll be right back. Looking forward to diving into this topic.
Are you ready to face today's retirement challenges? Are you prepared for potential market corrections and economic downturns? Are you implementing viable tax strategies to reduce your liability and protect your assets? Are you able to make informed decisions to safeguard your retirement savings and income? Centennial Wealth Advisory presents Mastering Today's Retirement Challenges. We are Northern Michigan's financial advisors, specializing in retirement planning with offices in Traverse City, Petoskey, and Gaylord, and we invite you to an informative presentation with a complimentary gourmet dinner. Learn how to use the new tax reform to your advantage, the best way to generate lifetime income, how to identify and manage financial challenges, how to maintain growth opportunities and reduce risk, and much more. Call 888-608-5825 to register and choose the date and location that works best for you. Tuesday, September 11th at Boone's Long Lake Inn in Traverse City. Thursday, September 13th at Stafford's Bayview Inn in Petoskey. Or Wednesday, September 19th at Boone's Long Lake Inn in Traverse City. Presentations start at 6 p.m. and are free to attend with a complimentary gourmet dinner to follow. But seating is limited and fills quickly. Call 888-608-5825 to reserve your seats today. There is no cost and no obligation. Don't miss this important presentation, Mastering Today's Retirement Challenges. Call 888-608-5825 today.
Welcome back, folks. I'm sitting here with Larry Flynn, one of the lead advisors at Centennial Wealth Advisory. Larry, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, so as you know, we're talking about income and the three things about income we need to be aware of. We talked about not having a plan and other things. Why don't you? I know you have a lot of thoughts on this,
Sure.
right? So why don't I go ahead and let you start sharing with the folks at home some of the things that you have become aware of over the years.
Well, Mike, I appreciate what you said in the opening. To not have a plan, is probably one of the first mistakes, right? But something that got me thinking too is, what about those people that do have a plan? What can be some things wrong with that? Well, one thing a lot of people don't realize when they have a plan prepared by anybody is that there's assumptions put into that plan.
Oh, yeah.
All right, and what are one of the biggest assumptions? One is you've got to have a growth rate, right?
Okay.
How much is this portfolio going to grow while I'm taking income, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like those guys that come to the office, always an engineer, right? They have these spreadsheets. They're assuming one rate of return is going to happen every single year.
Right.
That never happens, does it?
No, I can have a plan that says, for example, so let's say I'm taking 4-5% for income, right? And I've got projected in this plan 6-7% growth rate, right? Now, if I'm making 6-7% every year while I'm only pulling 4-5% out,
Sounds like it's going to work to me.
not brain surgery, right? That's
Yeah.
going to work forever. Matter of fact, I'm not only going to be able to take income, I'm going to be able to grow that over a long period of time, right? But returns don't work that way.
Right.
Right? What happens when you have an 08, and markets drop to half their value and you're still pulling out that 4 or 5%?
Think about it. Between 2000 and 2009, the stock market, not only did it not make money, it actually lost a little bit on average each year. What happens with your plan where you're assuming 6-7% earnings, or any number for that matter, and the market ends up losing over a 10-year period of time?
That's right.
Right?
So getting back to what would make an income plan successful, right? Well, it's all going to be about not only getting that growth that's going to match or exceed what I'm taking out as income, but you got to make sure that income is sustainable, that it's not going to be subject to huge market fluctuations.
Yeah, I think about this when you're working, you get every 2 weeks, they get this steady paycheck. And if you ask them, if I said, gee, Larry, when you retire, you got a steady paycheck when you were working, do you want a steady paycheck when you're retired? You're probably going to say yes. But, how many times do you hear someone say, well, if the markets don't cooperate, we'll just tighten our belts? You ever hear that?
Yes.
Yeah. Is that a plan?
Yeah.
Is it a plan to tighten your belt? Is that
Or is it a reality that you can do that?
Yeah, so if you have to tighten your belt, is it fair to say that we don't have a plan?
That's right.
So now, help us out here. What are some of the things, we talked a little bit in the opening about having a smart, being intelligent about using protected accounts. How does that fit in to the whole mix?
Well, it's a challenge. In today's environment, it's a challenge because historically, people would predominantly just move from equities or stocks into what we call fixed income accounts or bonds, right? Okay. When they were paying 6-7%, right? That was a no-brainer.
Right.
But today, the yield is so low on these kind of instruments that it's forced advisors to have to go to other places.
Sure. And by the way, folks, just so you know, when Larry said that, when my dad retired in 2000, we could go get a 10-year government bond, a guaranteed rate of return of 5-6%. right?
Yep.
Be easy if we could do that today. And what Larry's saying is we can't do that anymore. Today it's like 3%, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So what kind of alternatives do we need to look at, and how do they play a role?
Well, there's a number of financial instruments out there that give you, downside protection while trying to get you a fairly good yield or income.
Some kind of decent rate of return.
Right.
What is a decent rate of return today? If on accounts that protect your principal, what are you seeing for decent rates of return out there?
Well, if I'm trying to take 4 or 5%, a decent return, as far as I'd be concerned, to be anywhere between 5, 6, 7%.
Okay, so if you can basically make what you're taking out and just maybe eke out a little above, then you're in good shape.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Now, help me out here. How much money, like what percentage of someone's portfolio, generally speaking, should be in these protected accounts versus in market accounts?
Well, if I'm doing income planning appropriately, the first amount of money I want to plan for is my income. Okay, there's several other things we want to plan for, inflation and extras and all that kind of thing, but my primary focus, number one, should be having a sustainable income that I can count on the rest of my life.
Okay, so basically what I'm hearing you say is the answer is going to be different for everyone.
That's right.
You just have to make sure that there's enough money there so that if the markets are in a bad place, then you've got a place you can go to get money while you're waiting for markets to do their thing.
That's right.
Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay, great. Larry, super information. That was absolutely fantastic. And folks, great stuff here. I don't want you going anywhere. We're going to dive into things like Chalk Talk and look at this even in more depth. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Your grandchildren are precious to you. They are your life. This is your time to have that special relationship. Taking care of yourself is taking care of them. Centennial Wealth Advisory is offering a free, no-obligation retirement review to make sure you don't run out of money during your retirement. Centennial Wealth Advisory. Your best is yet to come.
Hi, I'm sitting here with Larry Flynn. Thanks for being here, Larry.
Thank you, Mike.
He's one of the advisors at Centennial Wealth Advisory. And folks, as you may know by now, we certainly invite you to come visit with us. It's absolutely free to get a second opinion on your retirement planning. And I think it's important to get a second opinion from someone who's a specialist when it comes to retirement planning. And Larry, I'm sure they're wondering, if they pick up the phone and they call and come visit with you, what can they expect? What's that experience like?
Well, Mike, they can expect not to get heart sold, okay? We're going to greet them warmly. We're going to sit down and talk to them a little bit about maybe their story, where they're from, where they grew up, how they met their spouse, what they're dreaming of doing once they get soon to be retired or retired.
Kind of what are their goals, right?
Yeah, what are your goals? We're going to talk to them a little bit about who we are, what we do, show them how we do things, especially dealing in the market realities we find ourselves in today.
Got it. So essentially, they're coming in, you're learning a little bit about what's important to them, what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish. I'm sure you're taking a look at what they're doing so far. You maybe share a little bit about you, and it's just in a very relaxed atmosphere.
That's right.
And there's no cost to do this. Is that correct?
No cost. No cost.
All right. So, folks, there you go. I mean, it sounds very simple, very easy, very laid back. There's no reason for you not to just pick up the phone, call the number on the screen, come visit us, get that second opinion. You'd be glad that you did. All right, folks, this week in Chalk Talk, we are going to look at this concept known as sequence of return risk. So, what the heck is that? I mean, that sounds like some fancy financial talk, right? Well, we're going to look at first the impact that it has, and then I'll kind of tell you what it is. So, here's what I want you to think about. My dad, My dad retired right here, January 1st, 2000, way back then. And when he retired, let's imagine he had about $500,000. Now, these aren't going to be exact numbers. They're pretty close because, but I've changed them to make this simple. So he's got roughly $500K, and he wanted some income. How much? Well, $24,000 a year, which is roughly 5%, right? So it's roughly 5%, a little, just a smidge less. Now, he wanted that to increase with inflation each year. So here's what my dad said to me. He said, Mike, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking the following. I want you to invest this money, and if it averages about 7, and I take out 5, then I should be able to get my income, and it should be able to grow a little bit with inflation, maybe a couple % a year. And I said, gosh, Dad, that sounds like it makes sense to me. So we earn 7. So let's just do some simple math together. 7% of 500,000, so we earn $35,000. We take out 24. That means at the end of the year we should have about 509,000 or something, or 511, or something like that. And then the next year we would earn 7% on a little bit more money and take out a little bit less. In other words, we should be earning more than we take out each year. Now, here's the question, and this is the simple question. Let's imagine that this process continues for many years. So here we are. It's the end of December of 2017. It's been 18 years of this. Here's the question. When my dad opens up his account statement in December, how much money should he have? Should he have roughly $700,000 at that point? Or should he have $70,000 at that point? The answer has to do with this idea of sequence of return risk, or order of return risk, because here is the reality. Let's imagine that my father could put his money somewhere at the time where he got 7% a year every single year like clockwork. 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. Is there such an investment? No, there's not. But let's pretend there was. If that were the case, he'd have $700,000 or close to it, because he'd always be earning more than what he takes out. He'd essentially be pulling out 7, taking out 5. Life would be good. But here's the issue. What if my dad put his money in the stock market? Do you know what the stock market earned between January of 2000 and December of 2017? It averaged 6.91%, which is basically 7%. I mean, close enough. So let's imagine my dad started doing this. He started with 500. He averaged 6.91. He took 24,000 the first year, and the next year 24,000 plus a couple % for inflation, and so on. If he invested in the stock market, how much money would my dad have had at the end of 2017? Well, here's the sad answer. It would have been that number, $70,000. How'd that happen? How did that happen? See, here's what happened. The stock market does not earn 7% every single year. Some years it's up and some years it's down. And the reality is this. If the market is down at the wrong time, you end up getting in trouble. In this case, think about what happened. In 2000, 2001, 2002, the first 3 years, the stock market was down 50%. 500,000 went down to 250. Plus, he took out $24,000 a year, which there goes another 70-some thousand. He'd be down to under $200,000 trying to generate that income. It doesn't work out. If he would have had the good years early, he would have ended up just fine. Order of returns matters. Sequence of return matters. Consistency is a secret to a successful retirement. Hi, it's Michael Reese here. I have in my hands a copy of our #1 best-selling book on Amazon in its category, Retiring Well, How to Enjoy Retirement in Any Economy. In this book, we cover the 4 big areas of retirement planning: income planning, investment planning, tax planning, and estate planning or legacy planning. It has everything you need to know about your retirement plan, and I want to get you a free copy. So how do you get a free copy? It's really easy. Just call the number on the screen. Come visit with us. Come on in for a free, no obligation financial planning review. And when you come in to get your planning reviewed, we'll give you a copy, your very own copy of this best-selling book, absolutely for free. Again, just call the number on the screen. I want you to get your free copy. I know that you're going to love it.
Are you ready to face today's retirement challenges? Are you prepared for potential market corrections and economic downturns? Are you implementing viable tax strategies to reduce your liability and protect your assets? Are you able to make informed decisions to safeguard your retirement savings and income? Centennial Wealth Advisory presents Mastering Today's Retirement Challenges. We are Northern Michigan's financial advisors specializing in retirement planning with offices in Traverse City, Petoskey, and Gaylord, and we invite you to an informative presentation with a complimentary gourmet dinner. Learn how to use the new tax reform to your advantage, the best way to generate lifetime income, how to identify and manage financial challenges, how to maintain growth opportunities and reduce risk, and much more. Call 888-608-5825 to register and choose the date and location that works best for you. Tuesday, September 11th at Boone's Long Lake Inn in Traverse City. Thursday, September 13th at Stafford's Bayview Inn in Petoskey. Or Wednesday, September 19th at Boone's Long Lake Inn in Traverse City. Presentations start at 6 p.m. and are free to attend with a complimentary gourmet dinner to follow. But seating is limited and fills quickly. Call 888-608-5825 to reserve your seats today. There is no cost and no obligation. Don't miss this important presentation, Mastering Today's Retirement Challenges. Call 888-608-5825 today.
Welcome back to Retiring Well. You're here with myself, John Torbett, and Art Canfield, both of the financial advisors and senior partners at Centennial Wealth Advisory, and we're glad that you tuned in today. We've been talking a lot about income planning, and Art, you've been a financial advisor for a number of years and meeting with a number of folks, and I'm sure you have some initial thoughts that you'd like to share when it comes to income planning, especially in retirement.
Right. I think, the thing that comes to my mind first is how income planning, or at least people's perception of income planning, has changed from the point that I got in this industry to today.
Sure.
And I think so much of it has to do with the point we are at in this market, with this up run in the market right now as we record this show, and where people's thoughts are when they, when they've been doing well, in their returns versus those years where you're not doing so well, how that mindset can change.
Yeah, and here's one of the big things that stands out for me, Art, is it's almost like people are fearful to draw that money in certain scenarios where they've set this money aside, they've worked hard 40 plus years to save this money, but they don't know how to then turn around and say, okay, now how do I generate an income from this? And unfortunately, it seems like a lot of advisors in the industry are not really talking about that, or they may not be prepared to be talking about that. They're more focused on that growth phase and not necessarily on that generation of income type of approach. So,
right. Well, it's so true, and you bring up an interesting thought. Retirement's like 20 to 30 years of unemployment, right?
Oh, yeah.
So if you don't have a plan, you're going to potentially be fearful. You don't know what you can take out, or you might take too much out, right? It could go both ways. And kind of back what I was saying earlier with these good returns, I'm fearful people are going to take too much out because they think they're going to make 12, 15% year after year, and we know the markets aren't like that.
Right, and then you have scenarios where people say, okay, well, yeah, good, I'll just pull off whatever interest I make that year, and they leave it in maybe what we would think is maybe a more aggressive approach than they should be taking in retirement. And they may have a good year, and they draw off their earnings that year, but then there are bad years in the market, right? And so, you know, if they're taking on too much risk potentially, that could drastically change things. And that's typically not the way people have lived their whole lives. They're used to maybe a steady paycheck, and that's important, most definitely in retirement, I believe.
Right, because in retirement, you know, that income, the income plan we talk about is your lifestyle. Right. That's the stuff you want to do, whether that's travel or spend time with grandkids or obviously just keep the lights on and pay bills. And you're right, most people, maybe they have a Social Security or they're lucky enough to have a pension, but they need this retirement savings to fill in the gaps, to do the other things. And having that income plan where you know with certainty what to expect for the rest of your retirement is huge.
Yeah, and I mean, I think of it just a very, very basic numbers here. Talking about, say, $500,000, and let's say you were taking 4% a year, so that's $20,000 a year. So what that's going to, assuming no interest earnings, not factoring in inflation and all this, but that's 25 years that you could draw that $20,000 from your portfolio. And a lot of times we'll talk to people, and I'll give them that basic visual because they look at their assets and they may say, I don't think I can touch it. And instead we're saying, hey, this is your money, you've worked hard to save it. Now let's set up a plan to structure that income. Now obviously you want to be getting some returns, you want to factor in inflation and all that. Factor in Social Security is definitely an important decision to be making as far as how you're going to structure that. And then also taxes, how taxes play a major role in how you're generating that income and what impact that's going to have on you.
And so many people, too, I think to add on to that, they have a desire to leave money behind. Mm-hmm. And whether that's children, grandchildren, you know, philanthropic sort of stuff, whatever that may be, but when they helping build that income plan can show them what they can spend and what realistically can still be left for those special people that they want to leave money behind to.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, it comes back to planning is vital, and that's really the key thing that we want to make sure to communicate is just simply make sure you have a structure that you have confidence in and that you know what that looks like. And I would just encourage you, if there's certain things that we're talking about today and you haven't created that plan that maps out, hey, what does the next 30 years look like in retirement? We'd encourage you to just give a call to the phone number on the screen. We'd be more than happy to sit down with you and just talk through that in your personal situation. So thanks again for tuning in to Retiring Well.